I feel like emo music was the precursor to the world accepting that mental health is something that we shouldn't be ashamed to talk about.
Dude, I never expected for a Sean Paul and Simple Plan like that. I would have never seen that coming. You guys put that shit up.
I hope I didn't fuck up my kids. You know what I mean? Like I hope I didn't say something that they're gonna hold on to for the rest of their lives. And then I think to myself, I want to tell them, I'm sorry, I can't be perfect. You know what I mean?
Hi everyone, welcome to the EMONIGHTSG and Friends podcast. We are doing something a little bit different today. If you're just joining us on YouTube, then you can probably see that we are actually doing this via the wonders of modern technology, otherwise known as Zoom. And also, we are joined today by a very special guest. You have probably seen them on TV, you have heard their songs on radio, but you may not have heard their stories. So please give a virtual fist bump to Papa Bouvier of Simple Plan.
Hey! Wow, solid intro, Edwin.
Thank you. I've been working on it all night. Yes. Hi, Pierre. Good evening for you.
Yes.
Where are you currently?
I live in a small town close to Los Angeles. So I'm about an hour and a half away from Los Angeles, and small town, California. It's awesome.
I heard you just came back from tour in Mexico. How was that?
Yeah, it's great. We did 4 shows in Mexico. We did Mexico City, Puebla, Monterrey, and Guadalajara. Then I went to Montreal, did a TV show there on Saturday, got back home on Sunday, and then I'm here for about 10 or so days before I head back to the East Coast and start the Blaine Canada tour with Sum 41 Simple Plan. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, man. It's like the greatest Canadian takeover of the world, I think.
Yes, I want to bring it. I want to bring this tour around the world. We're hoping to do Europe and hopefully one day, Australia, Asia, all that fun stuff.
Amazing. All right, so let's just start from the very, very beginning. What's childhood like for you growing up in Quebec? Was it like a rough part of the city? Like how was it like for you as a young kid?
I'm a suburb kid, so I grew up in the west part of Montreal. I would skateboard at the mall, and kind of like one of those 90s. I was born in '79, so by the time 1990 rolled around, I was 11 years old. Started skateboarding, snowboarding on the mountains when the winter came, and just became obsessed with making music. I had a friend of mine when I was in 3rd grade that played the piano, and he was of Chinese descent, and I went to his house one day after school, and he was an incredible piano player, and I was like, this is awesome. So I begged my parents to get some piano lessons, and I started that. And then by the time I was in high school, which starts in 7th grade in Quebec, I started playing the saxophone, and I was obsessed with drums and guitars. My dad was a guitar player, not a great one, but he played guitar. So I had a guitar around the house, and my brothers and I started a little band when I was like 10, 11 years old, and that fizzled away. And then I started a band with Chuck, our drummer, back when we were 13. And we've been playing together for almost 30 years now. And we had a couple different bands, signed to indie labels. And then by the time 1999 rolled around, I was 19, 20 years old. We started Simple Plan after a few other bands that we'd started, and then we made our first album that came out in 2002. But my upbringing was kind of middle class suburban kid in Canada, raised by a family who my mom's side was English, my dad's side was French, so I learned both languages at the same time. And yeah, we just started playing music, and next thing you know, my early 20s, Simple Plan took off, and I've been touring ever since.
It's so wild to think that you and Chuck have gone so far back, Like sometimes you find your high school buddies and then you form that first band or whatever, and those relationships last a couple of years, and then you move on to different people. Like, I think it's so rare to find such a relationship like that. Do you guys are you guys still as close as before,
I think that we have a kinship, with being in a band. It's funny because, a lot of people listen to Simple Plan and think like, oh, that's crazy. they came out of nowhere and had sold millions of records, you know. But our relationship started at the age of 13. We started a first band. It was called Roach. We recorded an album in my basement. It was pretty good, pretty terrible at the same time. And then we had this other band called Reset that was after, it was like the reincarnation of that one. And, you know, we played we supported bands like Face to Face, NoFX, Pennywise, Blink 182. And at that time, you know, my relationship with Chuck, we were in a band. Him and I are very different, but we have this, you know, this bond of music. And we broke up at that point. Like I was like, I can't be around you. You're too serious. I want to have a good time. And I literally kicked him out of the band. So we had our falling out early. And then when that band was kind of like falling apart, he started a new band with some friends of mine from high school. And I realized at that point, I was like, okay, I'm an artistic person. I like writing music. I like to sing for a band. I'm a creative force, I guess. But I need him. I need Chuck to be like the manager, drummer, sort of like the backbone of the band. So then we reconciled our differences, and we kind of got back together and started another band. So in some ways, it's like the history of the band starts at that point, you know, at the age of 13. But most people don't know that because Simple Plan didn't start at that point. But yeah, so we had some tough times. You know, like I said, we literally broke up and like said, I never want to see you ever again. And then like 2 years later, be like, okay, I think we need to keep this going. So, and then we started this band. So it's been great ever since. But yeah, we're tight. We're tight. And I think we understand that we both have different personalities, but that we work well together.
It's like the yin and yang, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. If it was just me, it wouldn't work. If it was just him, it wouldn't work. We need both.
It's perfect.
Crazy. That's like 3 decades.
Three decades worth of it. I say that all the time about Edwin and I.
You mentioned that you toured with like NoFX, was it? Or No Use for a Name and all of that.
Yeah.
Were they like big influences on you and the band, like writing your music? Like
massive,
what
So what was cool is that in Montreal, because I've befriended all those guys by now, you know, and I know the guys from Pennywise and NoFX and Face to Face and No Use for a Name. I remember, I think the reason why my musical direction went the way that it did is because Montreal was kind of like an early hub for pop punk music, or whatever it was at the time. Was more like straight up punk or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know. But in my town, when you went to see NoFX, it was sold out, 1,500 people at a big club. And I think because the popularity of that style of music and that genre, I found myself in there. I found who I wanted to be. I found my sort of influences. And then when Blink 182 came around and their album Enema of the State in 1999 kind of took that genre and basically connected it to the rest of the world with songs like What's My Age Again and All the Small Things. And we saw that and said, oh my God, we can first of all, I love the music. I love what they were doing. And I come from a background of a lot of pop music. My dad loved the Beatles, and my mom loved like Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson. So combining that world that I grew up in and feeling part of with my love for pop hooks and big melodies, you know, we figured we want to do what they're doing. We don't want to be signed to an indie label and playing dirty clubs for the rest of our lives. We want to play in front of big audiences and travel the world. So we basically chased down record labels and American record labels, because we said, we could get signed to like Sony Canada, or we could get signed to whatever small label was in Canada. We're like, no, we're going to skip that. We're going to go to New York and sort of chase down all these big people in the music business, you know, and it paid off. So I think it was a bunch of kids that had a big dream and a lot of ambition and a little bit of talent and a lot of drive, you know, and we just never gave up.
Dude,
what a story, man.
That's well. And I mean, look at you guys now. You guys easily at that age, it's like, I'm not saying that you wouldn't expect it, but like, did you foresee, obviously you put in the work, right? But the impact of your music, right? The fact that I'm a 30-year-old from Singapore, I grew up here all my life, and your music still hits me every time. Like, man.
I would have I never anticipated that, honestly. Like, I think that in my band, I was the one that had the least long-term vision. I was living day to day. I was like just enjoying the moment, creating music, playing shows. I think that Chuck and Jeff, and especially Chuck and Jeff, were always kind of like eye on the prize. We want to go far, and I was not thinking about that. And I never, in my wildest dreams, imagined that I would travel to Southeast Asia, Singapore, Thailand, Philippines, and have a large fan base there. To be honest, I have to be truthful. I wasn't aiming for that. I was just like, hey, let's make music. Let's have a good time. We love doing this. I love touring. I don't really see anything else in my life that I'm as much that I'm as passionate about as that. And I was kind of short-sighted, you know. Luckily for me, I had a bunch of guys that were like, no, we're gonna go. Like, I know Chuck always had these dreams of like traveling abroad and playing shows, but I if I'm gonna be honest, like the connection that our music had with people, never had I anticipated that, you know. Like songs like Perfect, and songs like Welcome to My Life, and songs that people would come up to us and say like, you don't understand, like you helped me through really difficult moments in my life. Like I'm so grateful for that. But no, I did not. That wasn't part of my simple plan. You know, I was like, I want to make music that I like, and but there you go. And that was just like that was a really amazing sort of byproduct of just that passion. You know.
It's honestly like it's super tangible, like the depth of connection like people have with your music. Like, I mean, even at the events that we throw and when we play, like the stuff that you guys have, it's insane how connected people are to your music. Like, what is it that resonates super strongly with you and the band today that you constantly want to write about and communicate to your fans through your music? You know, like what messages stick with you?
I think in the beginning we didn't really have that in mind, but over time we started realizing what sort of impact our music could have. And I would say that now, like this new record and the ones before, at a certain point, I think after record 2, we started realizing like, oh my God, we got some people out there that are telling us like, I need a new Simple Plan record. And they're not kidding. They're not saying like, I really want one. They're saying like, no, I'm going through a tough time. I really need a new record. And that's when we started sort of purposely integrating, like, you know, saying like, okay, we have to write a song that means something to someone who's going through a tough time. And that kind of helped us shape, even though we had done that before, not knowing it, now we were doing it in a more conscious way. You know, like when we write songs like Ruin My Life, you know, featuring Derek from Sum 41, or songs like The Antidote, I'm understanding the importance of what these songs can have. Or even like on our 4th album, we wrote a song called This Song Saved My Life, which was really about that. It was really, we were in the studio writing a song, and we literally went on Twitter at the time and said like, hey, tell us what our music means to you. Tell us a story about Simple Plan. What does a new song mean to you? And people started, of course, it was Twitter, very small. It was like whatever, 120 characters, whatever it was at the time. And we used those lyrics. They're like, what were the lines that were coming out? It was kind of like, because of you, my life has a purpose, you know, and we put that in the song. We should probably credit those people. We don't know who they are, but literally like the lyrics of the song were built by people's connection to the music. And from there on, we realized like, yeah, we got to write stuff for ourselves, but we also have to be conscious that, not we have to, but we felt like we want to be conscious about the importance of this music on people that are out there, you know. And that's why, that's kind of like the inspiration between songs like Wake Me Up When This Nightmare Is Over, The Antidote, Ruin My Life, all these new songs that we're doing now. So it is genuine, but it's also with it's authentic to who we are and what we want to be, but it's also at the same time being aware of who's out there and how much music can mean to people. It's also kind of like writing about how important music can be, you know, and how much it's blown my mind, you know, and I feel so humbled by people's stories, you know, and that they say how much the music means to them. And I'm grateful for the opportunity, and it's made me appreciate music in a whole new light.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
that's
how do I even unpack that? Like, how do we even continue after this? Like, it seems like we've got everything we needed. No,
there you go.
No, well, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned like all these things, right? Because like, I think the way you describe it is like the kind of impact they've created on such an international level. Like even for us, like when we do our events, like we feel a sense of responsibility to the people who are attending our events. And obviously now with COVID and all that stuff, like we've not been able to do our events in the past 2 years, you know, and now we're in the process of planning things to go back up again because things are starting to open up again. Nightclubs are supposed to are starting to open up again. Live events, live band performances and things like that. So there's also this like nagging feeling of like, oh, we're responsible for our community, we're responsible for the people who've been supporting us, right? That kind of puts a bit of pressure on you as a creator or an event organizer, or in your case, of course, as a songwriter and a band, right? Like, just like a huge responsibility.
We're literally just the guys hitting play on the amazing music that you guys write. So like, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of pressure on us, but I can't imagine being you guys, you know.
Yeah, well, I think the tricky part is to remember that, you know, that we've created something cool. So we have to believe in ourselves, and we have to allow, you know, there's two things now. The responsibility sort of like it gets split in two things. I have to create something that I can be proud of and that I would like. You know, I think that one of the main goals of writing music nowadays more than ever, and it's always been this, is like I would hope that when my song is finished and I record the demo or the final version, I try to put myself, you know, I try to erase the writing of the song, and I try to get a fresh listen and say, like, would I like this? Would it, you know, how would I feel if I heard this song? Unfortunately, I'll never truly know because I've wrote it.
Yeah.
But so we have to keep that alive. We have to try to like keep stoking our own selves, while at the same time, you know, being conscious of other people. But you don't want to write fully for that, because then it's going to start sounding phony. You know, you have to believe it. You got to believe it. But, you know, so it is a bit of a balancing act of measuring and balancing what's more important, and trying to find you know, you got to have fun. If I'm not having a good time writing a song, it's going to come across that way, you know. So, but it's challenging. That's why, I mean, maybe that's who we are as a band. You know, we're a band that gives a crap a lot. We give a shit. You know what I mean? So, you know, sometimes people ask like, we need a new record. I'm like, man, it takes me a while to put this stuff together, because we're perfectionists. I want to make sure it's great. I want to make sure that I like it. I want to make sure that my peers like it. I want to make sure that my bandmates like it. But I also want to make sure that the fans like it. So, you know, we go 3-4 years between records, and now like almost 6 years because of the pandemic. But I think that for fans that really care, it's better to wait and have a record that they love than to have just constant material, you know?
Truth.
You know, so now you know, like you said, when you're writing it, some of the things are like making sure that your fans like it, making sure that you're happy with it. How much, as a dad, do you ever think like, oh, would my kids like this in the next time, like in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting is it gives a whole new perspective on how to write lyrics, and what, you know, when you become a parent, you know, your whole life flashes in front of your eyes. You just like, when my first daughter was born 10 years ago, you pick this child up in your arms for the first time, and you think like, holy crap, this is what I was to someone. And then suddenly you relive all your things and all the things you've said to your parents and what it may have hurt their feelings. And because you're discovering who you are, and you have an opinion, and you have this, and you're like, F you, mom, I'm not going to do that. You know, like, I want to be this. And then you have a baby, and you're like, oh shit. You know, my parents had to change my diapers, had to care for me. I'm the most important things in their lives, you know? So it gives you a whole new perspective. My emotional depth has increased immensely since I'm a father. You know, like, you know, before I was a dad, I may have cried. And when I was a kid, I would cry. But, you know, in my adult life, I cried, I don't know, 3-4 times. Now I'm crying every freaking week, you know, like everything. It's like, I'm like, oh my God, it's so emotional. You know, so I'm emo more than ever now.
Speaking of like lyrics and songs, like is there like a piece of lyric or like a line in a Simple Plan song that you always go back to, or has stood the test of time and just resonates with you like throughout like the time you've written those piece of lyric throughout your life?
Yeah, for sure. It would be, I'm sorry I can't be perfect. And it's that has taken a whole new meaning, because, you know, we sang that song that was basically you know, directed towards our parents, saying like, I'm sorry I can't be a dentist, I'm not going to be a lawyer, I'm not going to do this, I'm not finishing school, I want to be in a band, and I know you don't want that for me. Or I know that you're scared, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to be myself, and I'm sorry if it doesn't measure up to what you expect or hope for me. You know, luckily for us, it worked out. But now I listen to that song today, 2022, and when I feel like I'm having an argument with my kids and I react in a way that I later look at and I'm like, oh man, I hope I didn't fuck up my kids. You know what I mean? Like, I hope I didn't say something that they're gonna hold on to for the rest of their lives. And then I think to myself, I want to tell them, I'm sorry, I can't be perfect. You know what I mean? This is my first time being a dad, you know, and everyone, you know, I didn't do this 20 years ago. This is my first time. It's my first time having kids that are now 10 and 8 years old. When they become teenagers and they hate me on some days, I'll be like, fuck, I'm doing my best, you know? So that lyric, I think, is one that anyone can relate to, whether you're a child or you're a grandparent. You know, you always feel like, hey, we're human. We are flawed. We're human. We make mistakes. And, we can only hope to communicate that and hope for forgiveness and be better, you know.
Unless they remember those moments and write an epic song about it, and you know, hey, silver lining, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Brian, I've seen you cry many times when Perfect was playing.
Dude, that's been his song, to be honest.
Like, I've said this in other interviews as well, when they always ask me what song gets me going, and I've always replied with Perfect, man.
Oh, like, that's awesome, dude. Yeah.
Man, like, it gets me going. It really does.
That's good, man. Well, you know, it's okay to feel emotions, and in my older age, I'm realizing that you know, it's good to talk about it. It's good to let it out, because if you hold it all in, it just it explodes at some point, you know. And I grew up in a family, you know, that my dad, wonderful man, loves me. He's my biggest fan. He has a shrine to Simple Plan at the house, you know. But he's not much of a talker, you know. He doesn't go deep in communication, and I'm trying to help him with that. But it's good, you know, and it's okay to feel like you've failed, you know, as long as you can talk about it, you know, as long as you can say like, hey man, you know, I fucked up, I'm sorry, you know, and I really didn't mean to, and you mean a lot to me, and I'm sorry, I just came out of therapy, so I'm really deep right now.
Hey, no man.
No, man.
We're just like sucking this free knowledge without it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I mean, there are perceptions of like emo music, or just this realm, or whatever you call this type of music, like being in a way like depressive. But for us, like, we see it as something that's hopeful and like uplifting, right? So, like, what are your thoughts on like these perceptions of?
I think that emo music was the precursor to the accepting of mental health, to changing the mental health stigma. You know, like when in early 2000s, like people got, you know, sort of branded as emo music. I'm talking about like Dashboard Confessional and like, you know, bands that were, because we were pop punk, and then emo came around, and then we all got lumped in together. But the idea of emo music is because there was a time before that when, you know, especially for boys and for men and for most people, it wasn't that accepted to talk about your emotion. You're like, you know, everyone was like, sweep it under the rug, you know, tough love, move on, you'll be fine. And emo music came out in a time when I think the young generation was prepared to say like, I don't feel okay. My Chemical Romance, I'm not okay. You know what I mean? Like, and that opened the door, I think, in some ways, for, you know, 10 years down the road, where we are all accepting that depression and mental health is something we should be open about, you know, trying to raise awareness about people feeling sad, people feeling like they can't go on, panic attacks, anxiety, all that stuff. I feel like emo music was the precursor to the world accepting that mental health is something that we shouldn't be ashamed to talk about, you know, that we should be, and that's what those bands were doing. Those bands were saying like, hey, I don't feel okay. I'm, you know, I'm depressed. And at the time, I think it was met with a bit of like, yeah, like people were saying like, oh, shut up, you shouldn't be talking about that. But now we're realizing, with the inclusion of everybody and the open mind of most people nowadays, we're realizing that like, yeah, no, it's okay. It's important. Not only is it okay, it's important to say when you're not okay. It's important to reach out for help. It's important to, you know, if you just bury that inside, what's going to happen? One day you're going to, who knows? I don't want to say anything controversial, but you bury that inside, and one day you end up shooting up a school. You know what I mean? And that's an extreme. But like, if you're not feeling okay, shit, man, look for someone to talk about it with, you know, and like, because we're all struggling. The humanity existence is it involves suffering. And if you can accept that, you know, you can really and talk about it, maybe you'll get through it, you know. We're going real deep here on Emo Night.
Yeah.
No,
even in like the dynamic, like within relationships and stuff like that, when we speak to our friends, like sometimes we just realize it's really a build-up situation of sweeping things under the carpet, and we're not even talking about just like personal stuff, like the relationship between two humans, right? Like if there's stuff that you're unhappy with, right? Like communication is the key in addressing those situations and figuring out how to move on from it. Like leaving that under the rug literally causes I would say like 80 to 90% of like the fights that my friends have with their partners and stuff.
Yeah, like, it's gonna come out and haunt you. You better to talk about it and be honest, you know, whatever that may be, you know. We're all on a path.
Yeah, but I gotta say, man, it's like, I think what was super cool about the music that came out of like the emo era was that I think it gave a lot of the listeners courage to sort of like have some self-awareness and confront themselves and do some introspection. Because I think like, especially when it was like growing up and stuff like that, it was hard. You feel alone a lot of the time when you're going through something shitty. And then having like bands who are on a platform sort of like reaffirm us and be like, you know, you guys are not just like the only ones out there, like we feel the same. And then sort of seeing people that we sort of like look up to reaffirm us is like, it really gave a lot of listeners courage. And like you said, you know, like open up the conversation about mental health and stuff like that, which is
when you hear one of the bands that you really look up to, I mean, I don't want to give myself too much credit, but you know, people going through a tough time, and you hear, do you ever feel like breaking down? Do you ever feel out of place? Well, welcome to my life, you know. And it's like, then you can feel like, oh my God, okay, maybe I'm not losing my mind. Maybe I'm not the only one. Maybe I can, you know, and that opens up the conversation. That opens up, you know. So yeah, I think it was all part of the path to get to hopefully a better place in the future where we can all be, you know, self-aware and live a more fulfilled life, hopefully, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when you say it out loud like that. Like, do you ever feel like breaking down? Like, I imagine like a PSA running like on the television screen, like having those lyrics.
Welcome to my life.
You wouldn't download a beer. You know that whole anti-piracy campaign? I can imagine
you wouldn't download a beer?
Yeah, it's something
That's
about
hilarious.
like, you wouldn't download a beer, you wouldn't, I don't know, copy something. So why would you download a song? That was the punchline.
That's funny. Yeah, the piracy thing,
yeah. So back in, I think, 2007, I did a little bit of research, right? You guys did like the whole press thing in Singapore, you know, like where all the other countries came in, and I think you guys did like a bus.
We went on a bus tour at some point. Yeah. We did a lot of. Singapore has always been a hub for Southeast Asia, so we did a lot of promotional stuff there. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, like logistically and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I remember there was a show that you guys. I think you guys did like a secret acoustic show at where I eventually went to college. Like there was like this fake grass. I don't know if that rings a bell. We've been together for about like 13 years, like as partners. And we both remember catching that show, and
we were 15. Yeah,
I think it just hit me that we're talking to you about like, it's just the fact that we're talking to you on the screen, and I don't know, it just kind of clicked in my head. Like, it's pretty wild.
That's awesome, man. That's cool.
Anyways, you had a good question, and I was just rambling. Carry on, baby.
I didn't. You threw me off. I was like, oh no, now I'm 15 and you watch it.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Oh, that's cool. Well, that means a lot to me, and you know, I think that we started doing some stuff in Southeast Asia really early on, and I'm so grateful that we did, because we connected with a lot of people there, and I always enjoy touring. You know, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines. It's always a good time out there, and I'm bummed out that we haven't been able to tour for the last couple of years. However, the silver lining is it's really made me appreciate that we've been there and that we've done that. And you know, when you're in a band and you make an album and you tour, you make an album and you tour, you make an album and you tour, at some point it feels like a job and you feel like, oh, I don't feel like it right now. But then when it's taken away, you're like, oh, wait a minute, that is pretty cool that we get to do that. You know what I mean? And so I'm coming at it right now a newfound appreciation for the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to eventually definitely going back to Singapore and all of Southeast Asia.
Yeah, sorry, like speaking of like music and all that stuff, like obviously like this year you guys celebrate like 20 years of No Pets, and like what an incredible like milestone to celebrate, like for the band, and like to see the scene like very much alive and thriving today, right? So like I remember listening to like I'm Just a Kid and Perfect on the radio, and like thinking like you mentioned earlier, like these songs were written like about me.
Yeah.
Like specifically Edwin from Singapore.
So like when was the moment like when you realized that your career was about to change, and like how did it feel?
Give me 1 sec. My dogs are freaking out outside. I gotta go see if there's something. I'll be right back. 1 sec.
Don't worry.
All good, man.
Losing their minds out there. Sorry. 20th anniversary. Yeah, the song Speak to You. Go ahead. What's the question again?
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, like you guys obviously like celebrate a milestone with 20 years of No Pets. I remember like when was the moment you realized like your career was about to change? When?
Well, I think the first moment was when we got signed. So we, as I said before, Chuck and I had a band before that. We've been building this. We recorded some demos. We put all of our money. We all had like a couple of jobs, putting all this money towards recording and, this whole goal of being in a bigger band. And we got, a lot of labels did not want to sign us. Canadian labels, American labels. Yeah, sorry, we're not interested. And then finally, in 1999 in 2001, Atlantic Lava Records came out to watch us play a show in Montreal. And after that, we met our A&R, Andy Karp, at the hotel. And he's like, guys, we want to make a deal with you guys. We want to sign you on Lava Records. And we were like, holy crap, this is going to be the beginning of something. So that was one of the first ones. And then we started playing on MTV, and like the rest, I would say the rest of our career was a constant sort of slow rise. It wasn't like a big thing. It wasn't like one thing. So I think the moments were all little increments. Like we got signed, then we made a first music video, then it didn't really get played a whole lot. Then we got on MTV, then we got on TRL. Then record sales started to happen. We played some shows. There's more people showing up. And even the success of our first record, it was big, but it wasn't like ginormous. And we just kept going and going and going. We had a couple of Much Music Awards that had happened, and everything else has just been a slow, steady climb. Well, not slow, but not as fast as some other bands maybe. But yeah, the first thing was getting signed. When we got signed, we were like, okay, this is going to be the beginning of something. Now we get a shot. Now we get to really give it a shot. They're signing us for a lot of money. They're going to put a lot of budget behind what we're going to do. We're going to have a real full album that's going to sound great. So that was really the biggest moment.
Right. And I mean, we talked about this earlier about like the expectations and things like that. Like obviously like success changes an artist's perspective and like raises everyone's expectations in that sense. Like, do you experience that when you were writing, like still not getting any, like your follow-up album?
I think we put expectations on ourselves. The second album, definitely, we had already sold like 2.5 million on the first one, but I feel like at the time, pop punk was so popular and we felt so confident that people wanted bands like us and that we had a good fan base, and we felt like we can't go wrong. We're just going to go in the studio and nail some new songs. It's going to be great. And we did, and then after that, it was like, oh boy, okay, what do we do now? Now we just sold 2 albums. They both went multi-platinum. And then the pressure started settling. We're like, okay, now we don't know what we're going to do anymore. Cause we're like, do we do the same thing? Do we change? And I think it's a normal arc in a band's career. You have success, and then you're like, okay, now we have to show the world that we can be different, which makes no sense if you think about it. But for some reason, everybody goes through that. But yeah, I mean, I think we've been a band that puts a lot of expectations on ourselves, so much that we don't even need the outside, the outside label talk, because we're like, no, we want this to work. We want it to be big, and we want to connect with people. So
you mentioned like things like the dilemma artists face about experimenting with new sounds and like pushing your creativity, right? And
yeah,
versus like sticking with a sound like that has worked for you like for the past, how many records. And like for us, I mean, we were lucky because we had a chance to listen to your new album, right? And like we feel like this album is proof that you can do both. You can you can push the creative boundaries while also remaining true to like Simple Plan's DNA. There's something there kind of like that's for everyone. Like, whether you are looking for something new and fresh, but at the same time, you are not really like alienating your old fans with the new material that you guys like? Was that something that you guys discussed as a band? Like, this is something we got to do for this album. I know you touched a little bit about it, like in terms of the lyrical sense, but in terms of like the style and
production, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you say that, because that was exactly what we were aiming for. We were exactly aiming for, you know, what does a Simple Plan fan want, but let's at the same time try to make it fresh and keep it modern. And what would Simple Plan sound like in 2022? That was the exact goal. It was like, you know, we want to stay authentic and true to who we are and what people want from us, but at the same time, we don't want to be boring and bland. So how do we do it, you know, in a way that is fresh? And I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's exactly what we were aiming for. So I think we did it. We nailed it.
You've collaborated with like a variety of artists. Like, obviously, you know, we've got pop stars like Natasha Bedingfield.
Dude, I never expected for a Sean Paul and Simple Plan. Like, I would have never seen that coming. You guys put that shit off.
Yeah.
Simple Plan.
Well, the funny thing is that he wasn't supposed to be on the record. It was the original version was sang by Kanon. He's a a Canadian rap star or whatever you want. He's a singer. But and the original version was with him, and it was awesome. We loved it. He loved it. We released it as a single in Australia, because Australia was like, we love this song, we wanted to be a single, and it was the summertime. So they released it there, and it became a hit in Australia. So we're like, great, let's release it in the rest of the world as a single. And Kanon loved the song, but his management and his record label, they were concerned because he had another release coming out. And they were like, we don't want you to release this as a single in the rest of the world, because it's gonna work against what we have planned for Kanon. And Kanon was super bummed, or at least that's what he told us. And we were bummed too, because we're like, well, this already is becoming success in Australia. Let's get it going. But the label wouldn't let it go, so we had to find someone to replace Kanon. So if you listen to it, you could find the version with Kanon. So on our label, Sean Paul was also on Atlantic Records, and of course he's a freaking legend, Jamaican, you know, amazing guy, and his voice is so cool. So we hit him up and asked if he wanted to do it. He said yeah, and the song became a massive success around the world. So I would only imagine that Kanon's people are probably thinking like, oh man,
that's like investing in Bitcoin like back in the day or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You know, you're talking about like, you know, being a dad, your kids turning like what, 9 or 10?
I got 8 and 10.
8 and 10. Like I wanted to ask, how is Papa Pierre, and as compared to Pierre from Simple Plan? You know, when he's out on tour, when he's back home, how different are those two like personas, I guess?
I think it's pretty similar, but there definitely is like, you have to turn a switch on, you know, when I go, especially on stage. You know, on stage you got the energy, you got the crowd in your hands, and in some ways I become someone else. Off stage I'm pretty similar, but yeah, there's definitely that's the challenge of being a band. You have to balance that out and make sure that when you come back you turn the switch off, you know. And like, I'm not, you know, I'll be traveling out there. There's people waiting at the hotel, people waiting at the airport that are like, oh my God, I love you so much. And I get home and it's like, yo, you forgot to clean your dishes, you know? So you have, and I like that. I want to be brought back down to earth. And, you know, that's what my family is for me. It's kind of my anchor that reminds me, like, I'm not a rock star. There's parts of me that are a rock star, but I'm really just another human being, you know? And I like that. And I almost feel bad for celebrities that are so massive they can't go around and live a regular life, because I feel like where I live here, yeah, people know who I am, but they're not impressed, or they're not like, oh my God, it's that guy, you know. But if I was Leonardo DiCaprio, you can't escape it, and that would be very hard, because then you would lose yourself in like, who am I? Am I Leo DiCaprio, the movie star, or am I Leo DiCaprio, the regular guy? And then suddenly I would imagine that you would lose the regular guy and you only become the celebrity. So I feel very grateful that we've had a lot of success, and I've been able to enjoy all the fruits of that, but I also have stayed not too big where I can live a life where I can pick up my kids at school and not everyone's going like, oh my God, he's here, right. You know. So
yeah, that actually sounds like a really good balance, man. It's I mean, and anything more would be you know, the whole blessing and the curse thing.
Yeah, it'd be a burden.
If
Yeah,
you
yeah,
built,
it'd be.
yeah. Dude,
I
that
think
makes sense.
that awareness does spill over into your music because, like, your ability to discern, like, I guess the celebrity mode or the rock star mode from
Yeah.
you as a person,
Yeah.
like, just that ability allows you to make very honest music, and that comes through. And so,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah.
I like to think so.
So, like, you know, you guys have been a band for like more than 20 years, right? So
Mhm.
like you're in a position where like you've observed so much in the industry, and like you guys have grown so much as a band, as an artist. Like from your unique perspective, like what is it that you want to see in music in the future?
Like generally, or
I
for
guess,
me?
like,
I would. So we about a year ago we spoke with Linkin Park, and we asked Mike Shinoda, what is it around the scene that excites him, or is there something that's lacking that he would want to see more of? And his reply was
Right.
Playing instruments. Like he wanted
Yeah.
to see people actually use live instruments. So sort of, I guess, what is
Yeah,
it that
I
you
think
would
to
like to
me-
see more of?
To me, I just really hope that music will remain. I want music to make me feel something. I think there's room for those novelty songs that are more like, you know, you got that big energy, that's like, or whatever, big
Yeah.
dick energy, whatever that is.
Yeah.
There's room for those songs, but I would be really sad if there wasn't, you know, the emotional side of music. And I'm happy to see like stuff like Billie Eilish. You know, Billie Eilish is really dope. You know, it's cool stuff. And I wanna continue. I hope to continue to hear melodies that you listen to and that choke you up. I listen to songs sometimes and I'm like, man, it makes me want to cry. I don't know why, but it makes me want to cry. It just gets you, you know? And I would like to see that. I want to continue to see that. And I would be bummed out if music just became a TikTok 15-second clip. You know, I want to see something that's going to continue, but I am seeing it. So I'm not losing hope. And I think it's great, but I want to keep seeing that.
It's funny that you mentioned things like TikTok and all that, because it seems like nowadays there's a lot of discussion about how artists and musicians have to be almost like content creators rather than just musicians and artists, right? And you have to be taking photos, they have to be like designers, they have to be vloggers, they have to be like their own little entrepreneurs. Like as much as like platforms like TikTok have helped like some of these artists from like bedroom musicians into like viral sensations, right? You have that like moment of like where that song just ends up everywhere, and then they just disappear from the face of the earth for like years. Like, do you think like platforms like this devalue music or like an artist's identity as a creator?
I think it can. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think that you have to be careful how you use those tools, because you can fall into the trap of wanting to create something that strictly grabs people so quick that they don't swipe. You know what I mean? Because the idea of TikTok and Reels, Instagram, is that you want to catch the person in the first 5 seconds, or else they're moving on. So you're creating art that's going to be a little bit, you know, a quick burn. So it is tricky. And a lot of times, you know, I look at new artists that they realize that like, oh, when I do a cover, I get more views. Well, if you focus only on doing covers, you're never going to do your own stuff. So you have to use it. That's what's tricky. It's like, you know, you have to use the platform to your own advantage, but it is very tempting to use it in a way that it might ruin your chances, you know? So, but I think every era, every generation had its own challenges. This is the one that we're facing today. And I think that there are ways to make it work for you, and there are ways to overdo it. And you just gotta, you know, try to figure out what that is.
I have like maybe like one last question from my side.
Yeah.
Like
Go ahead.
I want to ask you like what was success to you like when you started Simple Plan, and what is success to you now?
I think success, it all kind of comes together, right? So if a lot of people like your band and they're listening to you, and then it comes with the record sales, it comes with the streaming numbers, and that comes with the fact that I think success as an artist is when you can do your art and not have to have another job to pay the bills. Because really, you know, there's always a stigma attached to saying like you have to make money, but everyone needs money. You need money, I need money, my kids need money, my dog needs money. Not really, but he needs food, which costs money. So if I can do my art and it pays the bills and people like it, that's what I think success is, you know. And sometimes it doesn't mean that you know, there are artists out there that have made money off maybe music that doesn't have a whole lot of depth to it, but they're successful in their own way, you know. And but I think that, yeah, if you can, that's what it may seem a little shallow when I think about it, but I think that's what it is, you know. Because no matter what, if people like what you're doing, whether I agree with it or not, whether I think that what you're doing, in my opinion, is like, I'm not feeling it. If millions of people like it, then obviously you're doing something right for them. You're doing something right for yourself. So yeah, that's how I see it.
So,
Final question.
Final question.
Final question?
Dude, I don't even know, man.
This is really fun, though. You guys have great questions, though. It's really good. Thank you.
it's like we're just taking like life lessons from you.
Yeah.
And
It's Pierre the Buddha Pierre.
Yeah, right.
I swear to God, I came back. I had a therapy session today, so I'm feeling extra deep.
We're lucky.
I guess we're lucky, you know. We're getting the trickle down wisdom.
Yeah. That's the true the epitome of privilege, is when you can afford to pay someone to talk to and ask questions to. You know, I mean, like having a therapist. Having a therapist is true privilege. But I appreciate it, you know.
yeah.
I think like having access to like a pro, right? Most of the time we just speak to our friends, right? And hopefully they give like insight that relates or is kind of helpful. But I think sometimes speaking to a professional is like the key.
Yeah, one of my good friends is one of my wife's good friends is just got a doctorate in psychology, and I didn't realize that therapy has so much of a. There really is. They ask you certain questions not because they know how to ask it. There's really a technique on how to get you to have a little more self-awareness. So it's been great.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not even so. I mean, it's not even so much about like personally. Like if I've never been through a relationship with drugs and like addiction or something, through learning psychology and stuff like that, I can deploy techniques that would allow you to discover yourself rather than, this is my experience with that and I'm going to share that with you. And
no, it's really, everyone has to go through their own. Yeah. Everyone has to, you can't, yeah, it's interesting. It's really bizarre. And especially with, you know, my age and the kids, it's there's a lot of introspection. That's and I think I'm going through a midlife crisis. I'm going to be 43. So you're like, what is this world? What is the point of all this? You know, am I happy? I think so. What is happiness? What does it mean? You know, and that's so it's all very interesting.
Good question.
Yeah.
Well, congrats on like 20 years of music and making music.
Thank you.
Continuing to make music. Like I think we're all super excited for what's to come for Simple Plan and you. And hopefully we can see you in Singapore at some point.
Absolutely. For sure. We will come back for sure. I promise.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for speaking with us.
Awesome. It was a pleasure. Have a great day, you guys. And we'll talk to you guys next time. We got some fun stuff to talk about. We'll come back on.
It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pierre.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot of that's heavy, man. Like it's really
that
like
actually was. Dude, I'm still stunned. Like I had a lot of questions, right? That were like stupid, like stupid ones, and I just felt like it was not appropriate, like to switch gears.
Okay, what?
Or like I couldn't find like a segue. You know, like I was gonna ask him.
No, you missed
I was gonna ask him about this chicken franchise. So right, apparently in Quebec or maybe just in Canada, there's a place called Saint Hubert's and a place called Swiss Chalet, and they both sell like rotisserie chicken, if I'm not wrong. And according to Wikipedia, he used to work at Saint Hubert's, I think. So I wanted to know about that. But like, bro, how to talk to him about chicken after that, yeah? Dude.
I mean, we caught him at like literally, like you say, it was fresh from therapy. So
Dude, if you look at the ending part, right? I'm still just like still absorbing and like I don't even like. It felt like I was just watching a YouTube video.
Yeah,
you know, like I didn't have to.
Point, right?
I didn't have to react.
You're just detaching yourself and was like,
yeah. Oh
man.
man.
There's really a lot to unpack, and honestly, like I think we managed to get a lot of insights and like, yeah, just like understanding him, his psyche a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
as like an artist, a musician, and also like a human being lah. And I think it's rare that we're able to like get artists to be able to like share their feelings and thoughts as openly as he did, just because of like they don't want to be perceived a certain way, or they don't want to be, it's like, oh, I'm on like full promo mode, so I'm just gonna talk about like rainbows and unicorns and like all the good shit that's coming out from the album. And yeah, very self-aware and like
and open. And
I think it's just like you said, I mean, he's very in touch with the humanness of everyone, you know, and not just his career or his role to the audience or whatever. And it shows which is super important. And I'm glad like, you know, a heavyweight like Simple Plan like also has that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think he sees himself as a heavyweight. Like I kind of wanted to ask if he realizes, but I think, I mean, it's fine.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're all sort of like just trying to navigate through life and at the same time just discover who we are as human beings and like what we hope to achieve, right? As like when we leave behind like what sort of like the memories and the memories and like the experiences that like other people can take away from just by being, you know, having that interaction with you as a person as well. And yeah, I don't know how to describe it as well, but it's just, yeah, I just still can't believe that we get to talk to Pierre, right, and have these kind of conversations as if we are like, oh, buddies.
I know.
Yeah,
it's
man.
Crazy, yeah.
I mean, it was nice for him to be so like down to earth and open and honest with the stuff that he's going through as well. Like, yeah, that's crazy, man. Yeah. Anyways, so when will the album be out and where can they find it and all that kind of stuff? Is the album already out by the time this is out, Edwin?
Yes, I believe so. So the album comes out on May 6th. So it should be out. It's out now on all digital streaming
Depending if
platforms.
I edit this quick. Whoa, who knows? Ooh. Right.
Yeah. So thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
EMONIGHTSG and Friends podcast. If you like what you hear, please make sure you subscribe, give that thumbs up button, notification, whatever. But really, I mean, more importantly,
the like button.
More importantly, if you like it, then make sure you stream Simple Plan's latest album, Harder Than It Looks, out now on all DSPs. And then you can message, you can tweet Pierre, leave him a comment on Instagram and tell him like how much the album rocks your bloody socks off. And then, yeah, that's it.
Bloody socks off.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Alright, thanks for listening, guys. Ciao.